What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are live, and I'm only live on YouTube today. It looks like something's going on with Twitter. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, so I'm just live on YouTube. And so if you don't mind, maybe share the link out. I'm going to cover a few different things. I'm going to cover some news, and I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in the charts as to what I believe is happening. I'm going to wait and make sure that I see viewers popping in so that I know that I just checked my internet, and my internet looks to be fine. Everything looks to be going pretty well. Okay, I see Phil. Man, you on it this week? Am I? I guess. I feel like there's just a lot happening, and like I always say, as I try to make sense of everything for myself, I generally share my sentiment on stream. So that's kind of what I'm doing today. The title obviously is, watch the markets burn, watching the markets burn. There's so much to cover. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this. I'm going to tell you straight up. I believe that a big part of what's happening right now is twofold. Number one, I believe that all of the value and liquidity in the degenerate space is being extracted. And I think that it's flowing back into Bitcoin temporarily. That's what I think a part of what's going on is. That's kind of what I think is happening. I think the meme coin market, I believe a lot of the NFT collections, basically a lot of the more gimmicky or degenerative assets. And I'm not saying all NFTs are degenerate. I'm not saying that everything is degenerate. We know what is and what isn't, right? And I believe that the money is being shaken out of those assets and put back into Bitcoin for now. I almost feel like this is a part of a great reset in crypto to an extent. The other half of this is I believe that during this process, every bull cycle is getting extended a bit. And I don't necessarily mean getting extended outside of this 4-year cycle. I'm not convinced of that just yet. It's possible. And if comparisons to like the NASDAQ of, from 2009 forward, if that's any indication of what's to come in the crypto market as everything starts getting tokenized, then we could very well start seeing that to a large extent. And so X is down for hours. Okay, that makes sense. And I really do think, and I'm looking at the number of viewers, and it'll grow. Generally, the majority of my initial viewers come on Twitter. It's weird. Just YouTube does not like me for whatever reason. But on Twitter, I do very well. So it's interesting how that works, considering I've been on YouTube now forever. I used to do you remember the days when I used to get like 1 million views for a video before my channel was terminated by YouTube and before like my channel got shut down or hacked? I mean, I went through so much hell, and now it just doesn't ever really seem to perform overly well. Interesting. But anyway, what I find interesting is I believe that what happened in the last market cycle is also being consolidated into one more steady flow of things. And we're going to dive into it. First, we're going to cover a little bit of news. There's a little bit of everything, a few articles I want to touch on. So let's go ahead and dive into that. This first one actually plays quite a bit into the narrative that I'm seeing. Solana on the verge of a death cross amid market sell-off potential scenarios. Basically, it's talking about Solana being on its way down to $120, or it already is at $120, and may very well be going significantly lower. Now, this goes against what a lot of the major influencers are going to tell you in the Solana space, because if you I've also noticed, so I was recently emailed by somebody, a representative, I assume, of a big project. Now, here's what I've learned happens. I think I'm on like a B list of influencers, right? And I think that's all categorized based off a number of subscribers. And I haven't heard anything about this, but I have been hearing about it lately, and I haven't even dove into it. It could be a phenomenal project. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Okay. But I've been noticing a lot of the big like Solana people and a lot of the biggest influencers in the space have been talking about this Sonic. Okay. And you know, I typically think to myself, oh, okay, so these guys are really working hard. No, they're not. It's the same thing I do, to be real honest. A lot of times I don't even know about a new asset because I'm so busy focusing on what I do know that unless something comes across my desk as like a paid segment or a sponsorship opportunity, it's generally, I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands of assets. I don't have the time to look up everything. But I've noticed that they've recently approached me. I don't know if it'll amount to anything. Maybe I do a deep dive into their project. I don't know. But I've noticed that a lot of the big influencers have been trickling in with their bullish sentiment about this Sonic. And I've been seeing stuff about an airdrop and all kinds of things, right? The reality of that is, regardless of whether or not it's a quality asset, it's probably, and I haven't even looked at the charts. I don't even know. Okay. I'm just basically putting it out there for you to consider. I'm seeing a lot of this bullish sentiment about this asset in the midst of what is ultimately like a pretty consistent drop. Okay. Now, it is what it is. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad asset. I'm not saying it's a good asset, but I'm saying that for whatever reason, it seems like the Solana influencers generally get first crack at a lot of the paid content and a lot of the sponsorships related to some of these assets. And I find that very telling to an extent. What I also find telling is that I have not seen any of them disclose any of this. You know, you've got a group that are out in like South Africa. I don't know if they've ever disclosed anything. I watch some of it every now and then, but I don't see very many clear disclosures. If I've ever seen any, if I'm honest, I'm not going to say that they don't because maybe they do just in the description, but they don't say it. I don't know. Okay. But I know that there's a big paid campaign that's been kicking off around Sonic. So just be wary, be careful, and be careful who you listen to and pay attention to. And I say that because even when I do paid segments, you know, if I dive into a project, you guys know, if I see red flags, I call out those red flags. I don't know many other YouTubers that do that. Because it hurts your bottom line as a YouTuber. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. I am not going to be sold to a crypto asset. Now, there are some that I like. Maybe I don't think that they're going to take us to the moon or anything, but I think that they're applicable projects with tokens that serve some use, like Legacy. Everybody knows, like, you know, Legacy Network is a sponsor of mine. The Merlin portfolio, basically applications or projects that I feel will benefit people, but maybe their token isn't meant to like, oh, I'm going to buy it at 2 cents. It's going to $3 tomorrow. But I feel comfortable with those assets because of what they do and what they're about. And so, yeah, I just wanted to make that clear. Now, if we think about Solana and the Solana ecosystem, man, that Max Maurer just dropped another video last week about Solana, and it's like my jaw just drops. Number one, that guy is just absolutely solid. I don't know how many people he has on his team, but he is so damn good. I'm like kind of jealous. I wish I had a team to help me do stuff like that. Help my video not look so trash. Help my, you know, maybe some editing, maybe a little something rather than me just doing everything on my own. But, you know, it is what it is. So I think, yes, it makes sense given where we're at and what I'm about to show you, that Solana is struggling. I think the narratives behind Solana have carried it to where it's gone. I think it's peaked out twice this cycle, and I believe that it's on its way out. That's what I think. And I think that some of these Solana influencers are aware. Like they try to fight it, and they're trying their damnedest to try and snow you guys into believing otherwise. I watch these guys. I watch them, and I see what they do, and they all get together. And they have this little circle jerk on YouTube where they're basically stroking each other and stroking Solana. And it's all to a detriment to their viewers. And the problem is that a lot of these guys really do have some pretty solid knowledge of the space. But I feel like they're using their power and their influence for bad. And that's basically the way I look at it. And so it's difficult for me to watch any of these guys with any real commitment or any real sincerity, because I know who they are to the core. And they demonstrate that every time like, has a single one of these Solana influencers addressed the abundance of data that has been shown in screenshots after screenshots and on-chain metrics? Just have any of them ever gone through any of that and like rebutted it in any real way with any real data? Or is it always just big, bold claims of like, Solana's 80% of all blockchain usage when, like the teeniest tiny, it's like all of it's coming out of the same 4 wallets on the Solana network, even though they supposedly have millions of wallets. Like, how does anybody with a straight face continue promoting that without being significantly well compensated for the message? To me, these guys are like the Rachel Maddow of crypto. You pay them well enough, they'll say anything. They don't give a shit about anybody following them or anybody that could be potentially damaged by it. So that is what it is. But if we look at some other news going on right now, Charles is basically telling people, like, listen, it's okay. Calm down a little bit, folks. It's okay. So this is Cardano news. Charles Hoskinson teases game plan. Obviously, many of us know that he just recently took a trip to Japan. Cardano founder on Crypto Summit boycott. Charles, there was no boycott. That's so silly. Charles Hoskinson was quite positive that the new administration in the United States would seek his opinion about crypto policies and favorable regulatory framework for growing the industry. We haven't even gotten there yet, really. Hoskinson literally pushed to get a place among leaders that will shape crypto regulation in America. Some of his moves are attributed to him, including his meeting with U.S. Senator Tim Scott and other banking officials to discuss crypto regulation. Notably, these meetings may not have yielded the primary goal, not yet. That is, to position him as a key contributor to U.S. crypto policies. Despite this, now this is a lot of speculation on behalf of the writer, the Coin Republic. The most effective thing we can do as an ecosystem is focus on our ecosystem, its growth, and competitiveness. And this is a tweet. I read this the other day. I appreciate the passion and feelings that everyone has regarding whether I attend or am invited to specific U.S. government events. Brigading government officials over X doesn't solve anything, nor does it change hearts and minds. There will be many opportunities and ways, and I can't click it because Twitter's apparently down for a little while. But basically, he's just saying, listen, relax. Like, this is all fine. He also noted, as events occur that give us the ability to engage, we will assess them on a case-by-case basis, but the direction is always clear. Let's grow Cardano while preserving its core philosophy of decentralization, okay? And then he took a trip to Japan because he's basically doing similar things in multiple countries. This isn't just about the U.S. Cardano news, is it still a favorite for crypto reserve? Yes, obviously it is. It's been noted. Now, Coinbase to launch 24/7 Bitcoin and Ethereum futures for U.S. traders in the coming weeks. This is key right now. So we're going to go ahead. Well, I guess we're going to look at this real quick. This is the liquidation heat map, and this is 1 week. Okay, you can see the price all the way down here. There's nothing down here, folks. There's nothing down here. Everything is forming up to the upside. Okay, you've got, what's this, 107 million? Yeah, there's 107 million up here around the $87,000 mark. You've got more money up here, 80 million. You got another 50 million. I mean, if you bring all of this to the table, it's significant money. Okay, so the question then is, what does this mean? What does this mean for the grand position of the market? Well, let's take a look at it. Right now, we're trading at around $78,600. Okay, that Bitcoin, that CME futures gap, closes right here. We missed the close of this. Okay, we didn't get it all the way, and a part of me was wondering, do we need to get every bit of it? Well, it looks like we are. because if we pull this out, we've got this much to go. All right. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you know, we could get a real reversal here. Well, we've also got another CME futures gap up here around the $86,000 to $84,000 mark. So for us to get a reversal and fill that CME futures gap, then the question is, if we do get a reversal, let's say we come all the way down here at around 77,800. Okay. And then we get a reversal. We fill the CME futures gap. Do we continue moving further down? Is this a fake out? Is this a dead cat bounce? Is that what's going to happen here? Or do we start a real ascent back up into new highs? Okay. You can even see here, we had this gap here filled, boom. And this is on a 4-hour chart, folks. So you can see we came all the way down here, created this, immediately reversed, came up, cleared that out, and came back down. So anything is possible, but if we look at the bigger picture, I know there's a lot of gobbledygook here, but we're going to go back and we're going to look at how this market has been changing. If I go from the last bearish candle, okay, now this is on a 2-day chart. If I go from the last bearish candle to that market peak, what we're going to notice is that the bear market side of these four-year cycles are falling away, and the bull market cycle, the bull market periods are getting longer. Now, if we go from the bottom here, the last low candle, all the way to the peak, it's about 743 days. Okay, from halving to the peak, you've got 376 days. Write this stuff down if you want. Okay. Write that stuff down. Here, you can see that the bear market side of this went a little bit long, but the bear market or the bull market also went a little longer. What we're seeing is kind of a transition. The cycles, the cycle time frames effectively are remaining around the same, but you can see here from halving to peak, that was 376 days. This is the 2013-2014 cycle. Then we get into the 2017 cycle where from halving to peak, we're looking at 518 days, much longer than that previous one. Okay. Then you have from the low of the cycle to the peak of the cycle, boom, 845 days, 100 days longer than the previous market. Now, this is the big ringer. If we go into the 2021 market cycle, what happens here? If we go from the bottom of that market to the final peak, you've got 1,056 days. Okay. It's 1,056 days. This first peak triggered a lot of the indicators calling the peak. Okay. It triggered me, triggered the pi cycle, triggered a lot of the indicators. But what happened? We had a pullback and a rearisen. It rose up again. Excuse me, I'm struggling because I'm drinking this coffee. But from the halving, okay, that should be on the halving. Bing, bing, bing. So from the halving to the peak to this peak, it's 544 days. Little bit longer, right? It just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. Why is this happening? Because the closer we get to institutional involvement, this, I believe, and I know that this sounds like I'm bragging, but if you remember what I called the 2-peak cycle and I explained to everybody how I did it, because nobody could figure it out. They're like, how the hell could you possibly know that? I explained to you how this pattern, this cycle matched identically to the NASDAQ from 2007 on. Okay. And why would that be a thing? Why would I think to even look at that? Why would that even be a thing? Because as institutions, so this was around a time when the institutions were basically saying Bitcoin's a scam, Bitcoin's trash, right? You remember this? This was a time when JP Morgan employees were banned from being able to buy anything, even for their portfolio. Basically, these institutions did not want the price to go up. Why? Because they were all working on their own investment vehicles that they now have. They were working on their trading desks. They were working on their investment desks, all the different investment vehicles. And so they were trying to keep the price from moving as best they could by sending out all of these false narratives about the crypto market space. In conjunction with that, they had the support of the government, right? The government's been doing everything they could to try and suppress these prices, to try and keep it down, keep people out of crypto. And sadly, even though I don't agree with a lot of liberalism and a lot of these liberal ideas and a lot of the craziness that's going on in every liberal country, it's funny how they're all following the exact same roadmap, doing the exact same type of shit. And they're doing as much of it as they can get away with based off of the population and whether or not they have like a Second Amendment, which most don't. Well, you know, can the people defend themselves against these regimes or not? If they can't, then they're going just balls to the wall with it, right? I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what's going on in that, but there's something to be said about the agendas trying to keep Bitcoin down, to keep crypto down. And unfortunately, the cryptocurrency industry overall is much more right-wing leaning than liberal leaning, okay? Because this is all part of capitalism, man. They don't want capitalism. They just want free shit. They don't really care. They don't want to have to do any of the work we're doing. This is too much. This is too much effort. You can't effectively be a really solid investor while you're smoking blunts all day, or you're like busy dyeing your hair, or you're out picketing freeways. Like you can't do that kind of work if that's where your mentality is. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just what I think and based off of what I see. So you have a lot of this left-wing opposition to the blockchain space, but here's something that I want to point out. Even though we've had things like Operation Choke Point 2.0, we've had Gary Gensler, a left-wing appointed SEC chairman, we've had all of this stuff going on. Why would that be the case? Why is there this narrative opposing crypto when if you look at things that the World Economic Forum, like the grand poobah of liberalism and all of the things that they're projecting, these 15-minute cities and just the way they're trying to transform all these different places, why does it ultimately go against the narratives associated with the World Economic Forum? The World Economic Forum believes that everything's going to be tokenized. One of the biggest alumni of the World Economic Forum is Larry Fink of BlackRock. Okay. So you've got Larry Fink, you've got Justin Trudeau, you've got Biden, you've got all of these left-wing figures that are proponents of the World Economic Forum, but effectively it looks like politically they're all kind of working against the World Economic Forum's overall agenda of you'll own nothing and be happy. It doesn't make any sense to me, which tells me a lot about potentially what's going on in crypto right now, because we're seeing this great reset play out. We're seeing this play out in the sense that we're seeing a lot of the degenerative assets that we know are bogus. They're garbage assets that have been artificially pumped by paid influencers, by artificial on-chain data, by greed, by just every kind of degeneracy possible in the crypto space right now, right? Now, what we're seeing, I believe, is we're seeing kind of a consolidation period where the last market cycle was kind of that breakup. It was kind of like, okay, we've got the first peak, but the institutions are coming in, more coming in. We got to drop this price down. We got to top our cups here. And now we're in a position where, let's look at this. Everything is extending and getting longer, because if you go down to the last bottoms of the market, which would be like November of 2022, to where we would project the peak of this market being, which would be roughly October, okay? The price action we're seeing right now is freaking everybody out. Oh my gosh, is it over? Did we peak? The $74,000 new all-time high before the halving, that threw everybody off. So that threw everyone's time frames off significantly, right? And so everybody's thinking, okay, we're on our way. And then boom, it just goes down. Then we get another pump to the upside. We break $100,000, and everybody's looking at this as the two peaks that we saw back here, but it's not. I believe that this is an extension of previous market cycles. Believe me, I look at this shit constantly. I lose sleep at night. I get emotional because I start thinking the same things. And I think to myself, this doesn't feel right. I believe wholeheartedly, this is the institution playing us. They want us out. They want to keep the prices as low as possible before regulation starts setting in. When is regulation is expected to start setting in? Even though initially it's just planning for, they're working on stable tokens. They're obviously working on how they want to start working with the exchanges. They're laying all this out right now behind closed doors. The big nothing burger that we all sat around here on this channel, waiting around like 3 hours, expecting some big, like, grand notion of what the future was going to hold. I think it's all happening behind closed doors, soon to be announced, and it'll likely be announced when, my guess is somewhere around May. Why do I believe that? Let's look at what's happening, okay? If we look at all of the news, everything that's expected, it would not shock me one bit if we bounce off of the original $74,190 trend line or peak line as support. And at that point, we get a reversal moving into the upside, because at this point, we're going to start collecting. Let's just say that happens around March. Okay. Then we've got the month of April to start getting that reversal into new all-time highs into May. Even if that were a buy the rumor, sell the news circumstance, it would still line up with a multitude of things. Number one, the announcement of their plans for regulating stable tokens, as well as anything else that they're working on between now and then. Then, as it relates to Bitcoin and Cardano, Charles isn't worried. I think Charles knows probably a little bit more than he's capable of saying. He can't say a lot of the stuff that I think he's been exposed to, the conversations he has and what's going on. But whatever conversation he had, let's just assume for a minute that he did go to Mar-a-Lago and he did meet with at least Trump. Maybe they had a few hour dinner. Maybe Elon was there. Maybe he wasn't. Elon may not even be a part of this whole crypto thing at all. He's too busy with Doge trying to cut money. He's trying to cut all of the wasteful spending and cut all these fraudulent programs and the laundering and just all of the stuff that's his job. His job isn't about crypto. But my question is, and I don't know any of this because Charles hasn't said anything to me, but I have to wonder, what did this conversation have? What was this conversation between Charles and Trump and whoever else was there? What happened there that inspired Charles to then say, all right, great. Now I'm also going to go to Japan and I'm going to start working things out there as well, because maybe he said, you know what? We have a lot of connections with Japan. We have a lot of relationships in Japan. I can go work on Japan while you guys are working on this. We come back together in May and then we start kicking some shit off, because they obviously know by now that Cardano is going to become the smart contract layer for Bitcoin. They also know that the midnight privacy layer, the 0K rollup or the 0K proof protocol is going to be launching with a massive airdrop, bringing in another like 37 million people into Cardano. Do you honestly think all of this shit is going to happen in a bear market when we've reached new lows? I don't buy that. Do you honestly think for a second that everything that's transpiring with this new pro-crypto administration, that this is all going to start coming about before the end of a cycle, and we're basically going down as though the market has peaked, like, let's see here, 214 days before the end of a typical 4-year cycle? Is this what we're really thinking right now? I find that difficult to believe. I believe that we are just preparing for what is to come. And if you look at the actual price action, and if you look at previous lows and previous dumps and all of this other stuff, I mean, look at this dip right here. This is in the midst of, oh, you can't see it, sorry. If you look at this, this is in the midst of a parabolic run from a low of $9,800. Bitcoin gets all the way up to 43,000 and bam, You get a pretty significant drop all the way back down to around $29,000 before we get that first peak. Then it comes down again substantially, and then we get a new high peak. Do we honestly think that this playing out right now isn't more of a redefining of the patterns associated with Bitcoin's price action growth in the midst of a 4-year cycle? Nothing has really changed here. And if we were to just match the time frames of these previous cycles, this from its low to the final peak of that market was 1,055 days. If we project that out from here, look at this, 1,062 days. And that would basically put us at a peak of the market in October. And yes, I'm leaving that $280,000, $476 mark there because I believe that that's likely where we're probably going to hit. That's what I think is happening. I think that the sentiment is such that we have been, our minds and our capacity for understanding what's happening as these institutions are laying the framework from which they're going to continue growing. Because listen, folks, I think that once all of this stuff kicks off, not only because we have like this new pro crypto administration, but because there's so much else happening in the space right now, I believe that the institutions are intentionally suppressing price action the same way they tried in the previous market cycle, because they know once there's some confirmed, signed crypto regulatory legislature going into place, they will now have free realm to start acting. And when they do, that is going to be the start of a parabolic run, I believe, unlike anything we've seen to date. And I think beyond just peaking in this market, I'm going to be hard pressed, honestly, I'm going to be hard pressed to believe that we ever see another 70, 80, or 90% drop, at least in Bitcoin, again. Because the more I look at these numbers, the more I look at these patterns, the time frames, in conjunction with what's happening with the US, with the regulation, with everything else, I believe the time for suppressing cryptocurrency asset prices are about over. And I believe that the kickoff to that really does very likely start sometime around May. Bitcoin had stronger fundamentals when it was opposed by governments. That's why people don't understand. I don't know about that. I think it depends on what you think of as fundamentals, quite frankly. And yeah, if you notice, my hair is getting like difficult because I am growing it out. I'm going to try and grow it out and see what happens. I'm hoping that maybe if I grow my hair a little bit longer, it'll somehow, I don't know, give me the strength to start getting back into the gym and start working on this, because I did put it out there that maybe I would do another fight. And, I love my karate combat, but it's just like, I'm so out of shape again. I mean, and it's just like, I need something to motivate me. And, we'll see what happens. I doubt it's going to happen, quite frankly, because I feel like the money I would need to really make it all worthwhile and to really, really train in a real camp and to just do all the stuff I need to do, especially given where we're at in the market. Like, I can't afford to shell out my own cash for that right now. But if the pay was good, and it was worthwhile, like I know what Ben got paid for his fight, and I'm like, man, that's insane to me. I especially if, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I don't want this video to be too long. I can tell there's 568 viewers. I don't really think a lot. I think the sentiment is just down, man. And I think we're being played with. And I think when you see tweets from like Eric Trump talking about, don't sell your Bitcoin, hold long term, stuff like that, I think that's them trying to say, listen, we're working on this shit. You just have to be patient. And if you look at the charts, if you look at the data as it sits, Yeah, I understand. And it's really difficult. It's so difficult. And I think there are so many other reasons why I believe this is difficult. The prices of everything is high. So many of us that have been in these market cycles multiple times who are basically all in are desperate to see, look at how emotional I got when Cardano broke back above $1 like overnight, literally in a matter of hours. Do you think those days are done? Do you think that's over with? I don't think so. Especially if they're talking about $1 million Bitcoin by 2030. Folks, everything that's happening right now is laying the framework for that to be a fact, not a theory. And it's like, it's difficult. Believe me, I know, watching the price continue to come down a bit here and there, but you have to put things into the grander perspective, understanding the timelines and understanding the things that are going to be happening in the midst of where we're at now and where the actual projected price. And you know what? This could even potentially go on a little further than that. Maybe it goes beyond October, and it sucks. All I care about is like by May getting to a point where I would love to see Cardano above $2 in May. And then continue. Maybe we start getting a retracement and then we start heading into the actual peak. We're probably, if we look at previous market, this would be our May. This would be where we're at now. This is what? This is December. And then we move up to mid-January. Yeah, that makes sense. March, April, into May. So this is roughly about where we would be at right now in the current market cycle in terms of chart and price action. Obviously not in terms of where the peak finalizes, but if that, this could even be our May. We could say this is our May. It's the same thing. I believe we're here. We're somewhere like this right now, waiting for things to happen, waiting for this. We're going to start buying into the rumor, buying into what's likely coming around May. Could be a little before, could be a little after. We don't know. We just know that they're working on getting this stuff out within, I think it was like 90 days of Trump taking office. I think they said 90 to 100 days, something to that effect. So this is definitely going to be a buy the rumor scenario as we get a reversal somewhere in here and start working back up into new all-time highs. And then once Cardano and everything kicks off and truly starts empowering Bitcoin and then potentially other blockchains, listen, I'm not sold. I'm not sold that this is it. It just does not make any sense on any level whatsoever. Not only that, but not a single Bitcoin peak indicator has triggered yet. None of them have. So do we believe that the institutions are outsmarting and outperforming and outplaying every peak indicator that's ever been created? I'm not just talking about the stock to flow. I'm not just talking about the pi cycle. I'm talking about everything. I believe this is a washout of all of the trash tokens. The liquidity is going into Bitcoin, and because that's the safest store of value. And then I believe that we're going to start seeing some extreme inflows into the top assets that are either a part of the reserve, some that aren't. And we're going to have I'm telling you, this is what makes sense to me. I'm going to call it right here because I want to leave it where it's at. I wouldn't worry too much. The only other thing that you can also look at that's really bullish at the moment is the DXY. The dollar has dropped. This is 6% from its high. I think that it's likely. Now we could get a little bit of reversal here. We'll see. But I think this is probably going to keep going lower. And this is another indicator that things are turning around, that this is going to start heading off. And then on top of that, if we do get another interest rate cut, which I think is supposedly supposed to happen at some time this month, if I'm not mistaken. If we get another interest rate cut, well, then we're probably going to get another big pull, a big pull up. Folks, the overall gist of this is there's so much good stuff happening. We really do just have to be patient. And I understand, especially if you're new and you're not used to looking at the grand picture of things, and you got to zoom out, man. You have to zoom out a bit. I do believe that this is by far one of the most mentally challenging and emotionally challenging bull markets I've ever been a part of. But I also believe that a part of that is because there's just so much happening at once on both sides of the equation. But if you wrap this up into one big pretty box, the sky is the absolute limit. Sentiment is absolutely bullish. The institutions are doing what they can because they plan to accumulate. The second regulation clarity comes in and it's actually signed on paper, we're going to see an inflow that's going to gobble up over the counter. I couldn't even find my over the counter Bitcoin metric. I'm still looking for it. I had it, my browser's like wiped or something changed. I had to start pulling stuff back in again. But I think it's going to be absolutely astronomical. I've already told you, $280,000 is my goal. That was just with 5% of global pensions going into Bitcoin. We're going to see a hell of a lot more than that. So listen, folks, just crow your coins, just relax. If anything, maybe you continue averaging in, but chances are we're probably all a profit right now is my guess, depending on where you got in, unless you bought in here and you're one of those people. You buy when there's blood in the streets, man. You buy when everybody's fearful. You buy when nobody thinks that anything good is going to happen. And sentiment is definitely changing. We're seeing it on the heat maps. We're seeing everything. Everything is getting to become a very tight nucleus, and it's just getting ready to explode. And that's my opinion. I'm always right sometimes. Maybe I'm wrong this time, but I don't think so. Until next time, crow your coins.